Here's a situation I want you to think about. You're in a community, online or in person, doesn't matter. Someone posts about the problem you solve. You're at a networking event and someone asks you what you do. Or you're having a perfectly normal conversation and the topic drifts naturally towards the exact thing that you help people with. And you have a choice. You can mention your offer. This is objectively the moment. The stars have aligned, the conversational door is wide open. You either say nothing because it doesn't feel like quite the right moment, or you say something so vague and apologetic that the person has no idea what you actually do. Or you take a deep breath and deliver the entire contents of your sales page, unprompted, at speed, while the other person's eyes glaze over. None of this works, and none of them are your fault exactly, because nobody teaches you how to talk about what you do in a way that feels natural rather than salesy. You either overcorrect into silence or overcorrect into pitch mode, and both can feel terrible. That's what we're sorting out today. Hey up, I'm Leigh, and this is week 11 of Basic AF. Let's get into it. There's a reason talking about your offer feels icky to a lot of people, and it's not because selling is inherently gross. It's because most of the models we've been shown for how to do it are the elevator pitch, the 30-second sell, the hook, the pain point, the solution, the CTA delivered in one breathless sequence to anyone who makes a mistake of asking, "How are you?" We've absorbed this idea that talking about what we do means performing a script, and performing a script feels fake, and feeling fake feels gross. And so we either avoid it entirely or barrel through it and feel terrible afterwards. But here's the thing. You don't need a script. You need a few honest sentences that you've actually thought about, that you can say in different ways depending on the context, that don't require you to pretend to be someone you're not. The goal is not to sell in every conversation. The goal is to be clear enough about what you do that when the right person is in front of you, they understand it. And when they're not the right person, they can still refer you to someone who is. Clarity is the whole game, not persuasion, not performance, clarity. Let's go back to Dan. You might remember him from last week. Former IT project manager, now freelance consultant helping small businesses untangle their internal systems. He found his 2 rooms, and he's showing up in them. He's being useful. And then one day someone in his Slack community posts, "Does anyone know a good ops consultant? We're a team of 6 and our systems are an absolute nightmare." Dan sees it. Dan knows this is his person. Dan knows this is the moment. Dan types and deletes 3 different responses over the course of 20 minutes. And then the post gets buried and someone else gets the lead. When asked, Dan will say, "I didn't know how to say it without sounding like I was just plugging myself." This is the mumbling problem. Not that Dan didn't have anything to say, he had plenty to say. He just hadn't figured out how to say it in a way that felt natural rather than opportunistic. So he said nothing, which helps nobody, including the person who actually needed his help. The irony is that responding to the post would not have been gross or salesy. It would have been useful. Someone asked for exactly what Dan does. The gross version would have been going into an unrelated thread and shoehorning a mention of his service. This was an invitation. He just didn't know how to walk through the door. We're going to fix that. Let's talk about the 3 failure modes first, and then what to do instead, both in conversation and in writing. Failure mode 1, waiting for the perfect moment. The perfect moment does not exist, or more precisely, it exists, and then you second guess it, and then it's gone. The thing about mentioning your offer is that it almost always feels slightly awkward from the inside, even when it doesn't look awkward from the outside. The discomfort is internal. The other person is usually just listening. They don't feel the wrongness that you feel, because there is no wrongness. There's just you being human, talking about your work. The fix for this one is simple but uncomfortable. Decide in advance when you'll mention it. If someone asks you what you say what you do, not a vague version of it, the actual thing. If someone posts about a problem you solve, you respond, not with a pitch, but with a genuine reply that happens to make it clear that you work in this space. You don't wait for perfect. You practice doing it imperfectly until it stops feeling like such a big deal. Failure mode 2, the mumble. The mumble is what happens when you mention your offer but immediately soften it into irrelevance. I sort of help businesses with like their systems and processes and stuff. Quite niche. I do some coaching, but it's early days. I'm still figuring out the positioning. I make candles. It's just a side thing, really. The mumble comes from not wanting to seem like you're overselling something that isn't good enough yet. It's preemptive self-deprecation. And it's a kindness to nobody, least of all the person you're talking to, who now has no useful information and a vague impression that you don't really believe in what you do. The fix, say it plainly, once, and then stop. I help small businesses sort out their internal systems. That's it. No qualifiers, no apologies, one clear sentence. Then, and this is important, let there be a pause. You don't need to fill the pause. The pause is fine. If they're interested, they'll ask a question. If they're not, you move on. Neither outcome is a disaster. Failure mode 3, the word vomit. The word vomit is the overcorrection from the mumble. You've decided you're going to be confident and clear, and then someone asks you a follow-up question, and you take it as permission to explain everything. The whole offer, the process, the pricing, the transformation, the testimonials, the backstory, where you started the business, the thing that happened in 19 something or other that made you realize this was your calling. Nobody needed all of that. They asked a question. Answer one question. The word vomit happens because we're nervous and talking fills the nervous gap. The fix is the same as the mumble fix, just from the other direction. Say enough to be clear and then stop. Answer the question they asked, not the 5 questions they might ask you next. So what does it actually look like? Whether you're speaking or writing, talking about your offer clearly comes down to the same 3 elements. 1, who is it for? Not everyone, a specific type of person in a specific situation. Small businesses with a team, freelancers who keep undercharging, people returning to work after a career break. 2, what problem it solves. Not what you do, what problem you solve. Their internal systems are a mess and nobody has time to fix it. They don't know what to charge and they're losing money every month. They don't know what they want to do next and it's costing them in every direction. 3, what's different after? Not your process, the result of your process. They end up with a system that actually works. They have a price they can say out loud without apologizing. They leave with a plan they can actually act on. 3 elements, 1 sentence each, or close to it. And that's the whole formula. In conversations, let's use Dan's version. I help small businesses, usually teams of 3 to 10, sort out their internal systems. Most of my clients come to me when everyone on the team is using different tools and nothing quite talks to everything else. By the time we're done, they've got one system that actually works, and nobody's maintaining 4 versions of the same spreadsheet anymore. That's 3 sentences. It's clear, it's specific, it sounds like a human being talking, not a LinkedIn about section. If the person Dan's talking to needs that, they'll ask another question. If they don't, they now know exactly what Dan does and who to send his way. The same 3 elements work in writing. Community posts, bio lines, replies to threads, but writing gives you slightly more control because you can edit before you send. When someone posts about a problem you solve, answer the question first. Genuinely answer it with useful information before you mention yourself at all. Then, if it's genuinely relevant, you can add something like, this is actually the kind of thing I help businesses with. Happy to have a conversation if it would be useful. That's not gross. That's relevant and honest. When you're writing a bio or a profile, one sentence: who you help, what problem you solve, done. Not your entire career history, not a list of services, not a mission statement. One sentence. When you're posting in a community, you don't need to mention your offer at all in most posts. Being consistently useful builds more trust and generates more inbound than any number of, by the way, I offer this service kind of posts. The offer mention is occasional and contextual, not a footnote on every comment that you write. Back to Dan again. 2 weeks after the missed post, Dan sees another one. Similar situation. Small business owner, team of 8, operations in chaos, asking for recommendations. This time, Dan responds within 10 minutes. He answers the question first, gives a couple of genuinely useful thoughts about where to start when your systems are a mess. Then one line. This is exactly the kind of thing I work on with small businesses. Happy to chat if that'd be helpful. 3 people liked the comment. The original poster replied, asking for Dan's details. They had a call the following week. Dan didn't pitch. He didn't perform. He was useful, he was clear, and he made it easy for the right person to take the next step. That's the whole thing. So to this week's task, there's 2 things. 1, write your 3 sentences. Who's it for? What problem it solves? And what's different after? In plain English, like you're explaining it to a friend. Not your sales page, your 3 sentences. Keep them somewhere you can find them. And 2, use them once this week. In a conversation, in a community reply, in a bio update. Somewhere real. Not perfectly, just once. There's a worksheet that walks you through writing and testing your 3 sentences across both spoken and written contexts. You can come into BBS community and grab them in there. And it'd be great if you want to share your first draft, not the polished version, because getting eyes on it before you use it in the wild is going to save you a lot of agonizing. Links in the show notes. Next week, we're talking about your first sale, not the theory of selling, the actual mechanics of what happens between I'm interested and take my money. Because a lot of people get to that point and accidentally talk the person out of it, or disappear into admin chaos. Or, just don't know what the next step is supposed to be. We'll sort that out next week. See you there.